and there was one year I went to New York and I did 11 auditions in 1 week and I got one offer.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes that's a good week. And you don't have to get more than one offer. You know what I mean? I mean, it just takes one offer. And honestly, people think that the way you get a job as a performing artist is by doing auditions. Mm-hmm. There's some truth to that, but let's be real. It's about nurturing relationships with the people in the industry.
Rebekah Howell is an incredibly versatile singer in opera, musical theater, and concert works. She has sung major roles with Nashville Opera, Opera Colorado, Chautauqua Opera, and Opera Louisiane. She has performed major concert works such as Mahler's Fourth and Carmina Burana with major symphonies. And she was the first ever Kurt Weill Award winner at the prestigious Latilenia competition just this past August. She has also garnered major recognition from too many national and international vocal competitions for me to list here. She is so versatile that she is the first singer ever to be both a national semifinalist at the Nats Classical Artist Award and the Nats Musical Theater Competition in the same year. Rebekah has been on the voice faculty of Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, where she now resides. And if that isn't enough, she is also a very busy real estate expert for Keller Williams Realty and a huge advocate for the dual career. Rebekah holds a bachelor's in voice from Baylor University and a master's from Indiana University. If you missed part 1 of her interview, you'll definitely want to go back and listen. But today, we're continuing our conversation about the purpose of young artist programs, what to do if you don't get in, and how to see our value as artists.
I want to fast forward a little bit.
Yes.
Right, we've talked about gap year. We've talked about the critical importance of teachers and different teachers in different times in our lives and what they they contribute. But I want to just fast forward a little bit. So after Indiana, I know you've done some young artist program, and I know you want to talk about that for just a little bit. Was that right? Was that right out of Indiana, or when?
No. Okay. And in fact, that was another big decision to have a quote unquote gap year, because a lot of my fellow classmates at Indiana, they would do their auditions for a young artist program the second year or at their last year of whatever degree program they were working on. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't get into a young artist program, I heard so many of them say, well, I guess I need some more work. I guess I need to go back and learn XYZ, or I guess I need to go do this. And so they would be doing auditions for
work. Are you saying as they thought they needed to go back for more education?
Yes, I must need extra education in XYZ area. And so they would do these auditions for young artist programs at the same time as they were auditioning for the doctoral degree or an artist diploma or whatever. And I had lots of friends at Indiana who stayed there for years and years and years because they never got into a young artist program during the last year of one of their degrees. And for some of them, that was the right call because they wanted to go on and be teachers at a university, or they wanted to go on, or maybe they started their journey as an artist later in life. Maybe they had a business degree for undergrad and then they started, with something else, and they started with an artist diploma. That's actually happened. I have a dear friend who's a baritone from Cuba, and he has an undergrad degree in interior design. And now, I know, but then he found out he was a baritone, and so,
interior design. So,
Oh yes. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, I not to question their choices, because again, that could be the right call for some people, but I felt a little bit like an anomaly making the choice to say, you know what, I've had 5 years in undergrad, a gap year where I worked on auditioning and all of this. I've had 2 years at Indiana, 2 wonderful years at Indiana, where I was very fortunate to do lots of roles. And, and I thought, I need to go home. I need to go home. And I knew I'm going to start up another studio. I'm going to teach. I'm going to do the same thing that I did in my first gap year. It was my second time around doing a gap year, so I knew exactly what I needed to do. So I opened a studio, had lots of students in Houston, and I coached with Tom Jaber, who is a coach who's at Rice, and wonderful, wonderful man. And he and I are buds because he had played for me for some auditions in Houston, and so I coached with him several times, and I lived in Houston, which was down the road from Baylor. So I went and had a voice lesson every once in a while with Rob Best, and it was great. And that year I finished up my schooling portion, all of my in-person classes at Indiana in May of 2017, but I had to finish a German course, which I did online. I didn't want to stay in school for one German class that I could just do online.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it would have been so much more expensive. And so I went home and I did my German class online, and I coached and did, all of that. And I did the same thing. And then I ended up, getting into several more young artist programs for summer. I had done Chautauqua, and that year I got into, I was given 2 roles at Chautauqua. I did Zerlina and Cunegonde in the same summer. Whew, it was great. It was fun. It was fun, but it was a lot. I was very thankful again for having that decision to take a gap year, because I didn't start something. It's okay if you don't want to get a doctorate.
Absolutely.
and I didn't want to get a doctorate.
I don't feel bad at all. Listen, I will say I did, and you know this, I have my professional studies. I did my master's in professional studies for 2 years because I was like,
right.
I wanted that next level of performance.
Mm-hmm.
But I had absolutely no interest in writing a dissertation and I've never dreamed of being a professor.
Yeah.
So I think if you're, like you said, your friends that wanted to be professors, get your DMA, because the reality is, whether we like it or not, that's kind of becoming the mandatory requirement for professors anymore.
Yes.
If that's not your heart's desire, you may want to reconsider, why, like the motivation. Is it, in other words, are you motivated? And I think what I'm hearing from you is the motivation for going back to school fear, right? Is it fear that, I didn't get into the program, so what does that say about me? What does it say about my inherent value as an artist? And I think sometimes we can let fear drive those decisions and drive us back in, because we think the answer is more education, because someone has made a value judgment about us, or so we think, right? That says, I must not be good enough. Therefore, in order to be good enough, I have to go back into the trenches. That's my only way. And what I hear from you is that, and you said this at the very beginning, every path is different.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to continue school, like you said, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think you have to ask yourself, why? What is the motivation? What are you going to get out of it? And if it's just to bide your time, hopes that next year you get into a program, then maybe you need to question that and not be fearful of the gap year and what it could produce and what it could bring to you, if you allow it. So you 100%. Have pretty, and you've continued to have some really great successes. You are, if people don't know this, you're the first ever Kurt Weill Award winner of La Leña, and this was last year. God bless you. During the pandemic, it was a nuts year to do it with all the video and not getting to do things in person until the very, very end. And then you're up at it again. I can't wait to see you in a few weeks here when you come visit me in New York. For, is it the semi? It's
the semifinals.
So I'm excited to see you again for that. And I'm sure you're going to be fabulous.
Can't wait.
So young artist, before we move on real quick, I think we also need to talk about, we talk about the fear, but also this idea that you did get into a young artist program, but this idea that young artist is not the end all be all. And this idea that the young artist program determines whether you have a real career, don't have a real career, or the idea that if I'm in a young artist program for the next 2 years, then I'm going to get out and I'm going to get hired by all these places and I'm set, right? I'm set.
Isn't it funny?
Manager, here comes the big San Francisco's going to be after me. The Met's going to be after me, right? We have this crazy illusion of what the young artist program actually means. And I would love for you to kind of crack that open, because I've done it. Obviously I did it as a music director, as a, pianist, you did it as a singer. So we both know firsthand, one, how hard, okay. Can we talk about how hard and grueling young artist programs are?
Yes.
And for the pay, hello. And so, I just want you to talk into that about the benefit of the young artist program, but also the truth of why we do it and what it means.
Right. So first off, just speaking into the process of even getting into a young artist program, it is different for different voice types because of the amount of people trying to get into them and trying to get into the industry. If you are a man, if you are a tenor, you will have a much easier time of it than if you are a light soprano. And that is just the facts of the industry. Pacific Opera Project is a smaller opera company in California, and they released a statistic. They released the numbers of what amount of voice types that they had at their auditions that year. It was fascinating because
I'm afraid, Rebekah, I'm afraid.
They heard about 800 something or other singers. Excuse me. They heard 800 something or other singers, right? Over the course of like 4 days. No, more than 4 days throughout their entire audition circuit. Sure. Yeah. Half of the singers who walked into their room were sopranos.
So 400 sopranos, and they're going to cast what, 2, maybe 2?
Yeah. However many, but if half of your singers are sopranos, that's quite a big chunk. And then a third of them were mezzos.
Wow.
Right. So very, very number heavy on the women coming in.
So that's 650 women. That leaves us with 150 men.
Yeah. And then there were a lot of baritones, a whole lot of baritones. And then they had tenors, small portion. And then they had the smallest portion of all, the countertenors and the contraltos.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So the rarer your voice type, the easier shot you're going to have. And also along with that, let's just be truthful about the role that aesthetics plays in our industry today. If you are a tenor who looks like a jock, you're going to get the gig. If I'll say this, if you're a tenor who looks like a jock, who's also nice to work with, you're hired on the spot, and you'll probably be rehired in the future too. Right. If you're a soprano who does a great job, I'll tell you this firsthand experience. I did some recordings in New York a couple years back, and the pianist who was there to do the recordings with the singers, she is a music director at a young artist program that I had auditioned for maybe 4 to 6 times. I can't remember how many times I sang for them. And we were doing these recordings. We did 5 songs in 1 hour because I'm a one take kind of person. My theory on recording is a whole nother masterclass sometime. But anyway, we recorded all of these songs in 1 hour, and they were great takes. And at one point she said, she looked at me, and she had been on her phone, and she said, I just looked up my notes from all the times that you came and sang for us. And I always had really positive things to say about you. And we never hired you. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, why didn't you? but that's just to say it's a huge numbers game. And getting into a young artist program in and of itself, there's a wonderful online blog called Middle Class Artist. And someone has actually run the numbers. It is harder to get into a young artist program than it would be to get into Harvard and Yale in the same year.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, truly, really and truly.
Okay. I mean, obviously I know it's hard, but I didn't know that statistic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Middle class artists. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, go check that out. Because when I read that, and when a lot of people read that, it made them feel better about their lives.
That goes back to what I was talking about with value. These
Yes.
value judgments that we're making of ourselves over this, 10-minute moment in time.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, going back to what she told me, she made a positive value judgment on me.
Yes.
She had written down positive notes, and yet the end result, they went with another soprano.
Right.
And that's just what happened. So that is a result.
Positive notes about 100 sopranos, but at the end of the
day,
they had a
that doesn't
to make. But they're not going to send a love letter to the 99 that didn't get in and say, "Hey, we
No.
thought you were fabulous too." That's
Yeah.
not how it works.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the fact of the matter is the tenor could be 6'5" and I'm 5 foot even. So they're not going to cast me opposite that tenor. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the law. That's just the tall and short of it, if you will. So, you know, we see these results in an audition and we interpret them as a value judgment.
Yes.
And you just can't do that.
Right.
A result of an audition is not a value judgment. A result of a competition where they're literally comparing grapes, watermelons, bananas, and oranges is not a value judgment.
Okay, that's going to be my new quote on my social media. Grapes, melons. I don't know what other fruit you put in there, but I love
bananas and apples.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Okay.
Put any fruit. That's literally a vocal competition.
That's my new favorite quote. Oh my gosh.
Oh, good.
Okay. I really feel we have to say that because I feel like people are giving up on themselves too soon.
Yeah.
Because
it's incredibly difficult to get into a young artist first off. So I would say going into the process, you have to know that, and you have to be prepared to gain a lot of experience at auditioning and not get anything on paper from it. I mean, there was one year I can't remember how many times I went to New York and did auditions and didn't get anything from it. Yeah. I mean, it just happens, you know. And
got tea with me. That's what you got. Tea with me.
Yeah, I got tea with Cherie. Tea with Cherie. Yeah. And there was one year I went to New York and I did 11 auditions in 1 week and I got one offer.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes that's a good week. And you don't have to get more than one offer. You know what I mean? I mean, it just takes one offer. And honestly, people think that the way you get a job as a performing artist is by doing auditions. Mm-hmm. There's some truth to that, but let's be real. It's about nurturing relationships with the people in the industry.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say if you are a student who is in school and your school is a school that hires in people to work with you on occasion for a master class, for them to conduct an opera or for them to direct a scene, anything like that. Or if one of your professors is someone who not only directs and educates at a school, but then they also go out and work with professional companies. If you have an opportunity to work with that person, you best treat every moment of your life with them like an interview for a job.
Oh, wow.
Because if you're not doing your best, they're going to remember. If you're not showing up prepared, they're going to remember. However,
it's like they're turning it on for that one moment they think that's important instead of looking at the cumulative. This person has seen you. They know who you are. They know what you're like.
Yep.
Outside of that 10-minute come in, put your smile on.
And that's not to say that you can't be a student. Everybody knows that you're a student, right? You're at a school to learn and be a student, but in that you have to show up. You have to be prepared. You have to do everything within your power to show them that you at least have the drive to want to improve. Because if you just sit back and expect it to be handed to you, and then go off and have a fabulous career without working and without showing your work ethic and without showing that you're a nice person to work with who can take criticism and run with it and learn, I'm sorry, they're not going to remember you favorably when they're on the other side of the casting table. And they're also not going to write you a letter of recommendation when a young artist program asks for it.
Right. Or any, I mean, I've been asked for letters of recommendation for all kinds of things outside of that, right? There
Yes.
a lot these days for all kinds of positions and roles.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's how people get jobs. I mean, and that's how people get young artist programs too. I mean, if you've been, I mean, when you write your resume, don't be deceived. Anyone who's on the other side of the table, they're going to call someone who's on your resume and say, how is Rebekah to work with? Is she nice? Did you enjoy the process?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I can speak to that. Sounds like off the topic, but I promise it isn't. My husband had a job interview yesterday. Now he's not in music anymore. He has a music degree. He's actually in wine, but to what you're saying, was blown away. The guy who was interviewing him, he didn't know from Adam, like didn't know him at all. He's not in the city. And the guy admits to my husband and says, I called every contact. He says, I saw you and I had multiple contacts that were the same. That I called every single one trying to dig up dirt on you. And I couldn't. I couldn't. So, here my husband is looking glowing, and it's not because of his resume. The resume got him in the door.
Right. Right.
But this guy,
his relationships with people kept him in the room.
Absolutely. And I was like, bravo, Sam. Thank God. Right. This guy admitted to looking for dirt, looking for something wrong with him. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything. I mean, he should have talked to me, but whatever.
Right.
My husband's amazing.
Right.
But, so, that's the world we live in, right? Not just in music, but just in general, like the relationships are so critical and keeping those intact. I love that you shared that. And one more brief thing on the young artist before I move on to probably our last topic. I know there's just so much we could talk about. But I want to talk about the finances or the financial piece to the program. There's been a lot of pushback recently. I've seen lots of angry kind of vlogs about what young artists get paid for the work that they do. And you and I have talked about this previously, and not that we're defending the pay of young artist program, but can you share with me your perspective before on what we really need to be thinking about, the point, right?
Yes.
The point of the young artist program is not a salary. It's something different. And I think that's getting lost.
Yeah. I would say, lots of topic has happened in our country recently about a living wage.
Yes.
And so this is very relevant to bring up in respect to the young artist program. Many young artist programs do not pay a living wage. And that is because they are viewed as an educational program, right? So it's an opportunity for the young artist who has just come out of school or wherever, they're on the beginning of their journey into, hopefully a career as an artist. And so the opera company employs them as basically an intern level, but we call it a young artist, so it sounds a bit more prestigious. But you're basically a performance intern, for lack of a better word, and you receive a small stipend that will help you buy groceries and gas, and maybe they'll provide housing, but it is not an amount of money that would help you be able to live on I mean, and they'll provide basic needs,
Right. Most
but
of them,
don't.
right, provide that
Yeah.
because they know they're not paying
Yeah.
you. No,
Right.
I did mine. I think yours too. It was housing
Mhm.
was provided and
Mhm.
those things. It was basically you had to provide your own food, and even
Mhm.
that was given a daily
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
wasn't enough to cover it all,
No.
but it was a small amount to go
Right.
to my daily
Right.
bill.
Right.
You're
And
not going to
so,
get savings. You're not going to get out of
right.
that. Yeah.
No, you're not going to be able to work on your student debt if you have any. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're getting a fine arts degree and expecting to be able to pay off your debt using your career in fine arts, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to happen quickly, if at all. um, and so that's the first thing with the finances of the Young Artist Program. It's just not. It's a difficult situation. And on one hand, speaking as someone who has been a young artist many times, you want to do a young artist program because of the connections, because of the relationships that you can build within the industry, because of the opportunity to prove your worth as an artist to an opera company that may rehire you in the future. Many times will not. Many times will not, at least for an extended period of time. Sometimes we hope that they will, but oftentimes it won't happen right away. So it has value for sure to an artist. Absolutely. I would say that the artist's value to the company is very necessary for saving money. Let's be real about this. An opera company has lots of operating numbers.
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah. And a huge part of many opera companies benefit from grants is that they provide educational opportunities for schools and surrounding areas. And so that's why you have a lot of educational tours, because an opera company will receive a grant, a federally funded grant, if they can prove that they are enriching their community and offering fine arts education, right? So they will have these touring shows, and that's part of that. And you learn a lot during the touring show, but it is a very valuable thing for the opera company to keep people around who will do these touring shows. And then on top of that, also, young artists will often do main stage roles in the productions, but they're not going to be the Violettas or the lead
Sure.
in a major production, because they're going to hire in a big name person, and then they'll let the young artist cover that role or understudy it, and then they'll let them do a smaller named role. So again, that's some great opportunities there as well, but you end up maybe not quite getting the performance experience that you wanted, because if you are doing a big role, it's probably a truncated version in a children's opera that's you're going to go perform in a cafeteria somewhere.
I know what you're talking about.
So good. Or you're going to be doing a very small role in a main stage production, which great, wonderful. But it's going to be grueling hours.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of work. And it will be an education for you as an artist, for sure, about the industry, about the business, and all of that. Know that when you enter into that relationship with an opera company, you are extremely valuable to them.
Mhm.
And they know that, you're valuable to them in that way. But can you make a living in young artist programs? I wouldn't recommend trying. I would recommend use that as a tool to build relationships, learn some more about the industry, figure out if that's actually what you want to do with the rest of your life. And then like I did with grad school, decide when you need to leave. Because the other thing to remember about young artist programs is that the age limit for many young artist programs will be 30 to 35. Okay. Let's just talk about life as humans. If you wait to start earning a living wage until you're 35, you're going to be really, really in trouble financially when you try to retire. And
Which-
so that's just,
Yes, takes me to the next topic.
Isn't she awesome? Rebekah's going to be back with us in a month, and we're going to be discussing dual careers, and could that be a right option for you? And could it possibly be the key to artistic freedom? But for now, what is something you can take away from this video? What inspired you? What helped you? We want to know. Comment below. We can't wait to hear about it. And until next week, keep dreaming, keep practicing, and keep sharing your music with the world.
Change what you want now.